Hey there, my name is Cole Adams, and you are watching the best college basketball podcast out there that covers the entire sport of college basketball, brackets, bubbles, and bid stealers. Now, here are your hosts, Sam Fetterman and Jonathan Lidskin.
I thought I could intro it, but why is he here? All right, welcome to Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. I'm your host, Jacob Polachek, host, Sam Fetterman, and we got a special guest today, Jonathan Lidskin. Jonathan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, guys, Kentucky Insider, excited to be here. That went about as smooth as I thought it was going to.
I'm going to be completely honest. It was not bad.
I was kind of upset when I saw that Cole was introing it. I thought this was going to be my chance to shine.
Well, you still do the intro after the video.
It threw me off a little bit. I wasn't prepared for it. You didn't warn me.
I guess you just haven't been
watching. He got rattled by Cole, as many do.
Yeah, he's intimidating. He's an intimidating guy.
I guess you just haven't been watching enough Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers recently.
Very telling, Jacob. Maybe we should be kicking you off the show.
So this is Season 6, Episode 19, Tip-Off Talk. We are previewing the Kentucky Wildcats. Jacob Polachek is here with us, as you know, because he just introed the show. Jacob, you just got back from Peach Jam. So now you're kicking into full gear with this recruiting class and this Kentucky team coming into the season.
Yeah, my mind has been all recruiting, so I've got to switch things up a little bit and get back to talking about this next year's team. And it'll be easier to preview this than last year when I hadn't really seen anyone. Well, I hadn't seen any of these guys in the Kentucky uniform.
We've seen a bunch of these guys in Kentucky uniforms. Otega Oweh is back. Brandon Garrison is back. There are a few others, but those are the two main ones coming back. But starting with Oweh, who burst out and had another breakout last year. It felt like he was kind of on the cusp of a breakout when he was with Oklahoma. He had that full breakout last year, was especially good in conference play and especially good against the Sooners whenever he played them. But now he is the face of the Kentucky program heading into this next season. What do you think are realistic expectations, and what are the Kentucky fan expectations for Otega Oweh in his senior season?
I'll start by saying it feels like every time I talk to someone, whether it be with the program, other reporters, just what I'm hearing about Otega is that Otega is Otega and he's doing what he does. I do think that this year's roster kind of fits his play a little more, where he's a downhill guy, gets downhill, finishes through contact, gets to the rim, and you're going to see a lot more of that with Kentucky. Maybe it's a better thing. Maybe it's a worse thing for him because you're not going to have those shooters to kick it out to. But, yeah, he is who he is. You'll probably want to see the shooting improve a little bit, especially if he wants to move up his draft stock. But he's not known for his shooting. He's getting to the rim, scoring at the basket, and being a really solid defender. So, yeah, I think that what you see is what you get with Otega.
Jonathan, how good do you think Otega Oweh can be this year? Do you think we're looking at a potential All-American here?
Yeah. I think probably, it's hard to say at this point that, someone who was as good as he was last year can't win National Player of the Year. Obviously, that's a, pretty tough feat. But, I don't see why he shouldn't be one of the, 4 or 5 favorites coming into the year for SEC Player of the Year and, expected to be an All-American. Obviously, everyone that's expected to be an All-American isn't going to be. But, yeah, I mean, the Pope system it seems to work for him. And, I expect his jump shot to improve.
I want to move on from Oweh. We'll kind of get back to him a little later. But I want to talk about the composition of the backcourt with Jalen Lowe, Denzel Aberdeen, and then others including Jasper Johnson, Colin Chandler, Trent Noah. But Lowe is kind of the one I wanted to get into here because last year at Pitt, he wasn't great. I didn't think he had a year that truly reflected how good he can be. And I think overall that was a lot of what Pitt was as a team. They didn't really have a lot of variety. They didn't really have a lot of different ways to beat you. And they ended up going Jalen Lowe ball screen, Jalen Lowe ball screen, Jalen Lowe ball screen, possession after possession after possession. Mark Pope has not been ball screen heavy over the last few years. He was when he had Alex Barcelo as his point guard at BYU. I do think we'll see a little more of the ball screen game this year, but I also think there's other ways in which Jalen Lowe can be a big-time contributor and be this team's lead guard outside of just the ball screens. I think they can have him. I think they have enough ball handling between Aberdeen and OA to let Lowe not be the ball handler on every possession. Obviously, Ish Leggett gave a little bit of reprieve last year, but it was mostly still Lowe. He was almost at 30% usage. He was at a 30% usage in conference play. I think that this system where they're going to have different ways in which they can get Lowe the ball and different ways where he can attack, where it's not just the ball screens, where it's not just them spamming ball screens for him and giving him a couple of options. They will have different ways to get him into those ball screens, different ways to have him come off of off ball screens, different ways to have him run the offense this year. What are you most looking forward to about Jalen Lowe this year, Jonathan?
Not seeing him be overly used like he was at Pitt. I mean, they had no other options to handle the ball. I mean, I wouldn't even say that it was a true ball handler. He had a higher turnover rate than assist rate. So yeah, I'm excited to see him play with like actual spacing and in an actual system versus, like you said, just spamming ball screens. Because I think he's a talented player. He's not a great shooter, but even as a smaller guard, he gets to the rim. He's really good as a playmaker. And yeah, I mean, he's not going to have to be relied upon as much, which I kind of thought in conference play that he got really tired just because they had to keep going to him.
Jacob, what do you think about the addition of Jalen Lowe and how that changes the calculus of what both Lowe looks like and what Mark Pope's offense looks like?
Yeah, like Pope said it, I think it was early in the summer about, he said it in kind of as nice a way as he could, but just saying that it was the situation he was in last year at Pitt that really didn't allow him to flourish. And he thinks that in his system, he can really flourish. Everything I'm hearing is he is the bona fide starting point guard for Kentucky, no question. But Pope did have some interesting comments earlier this week about how they have a lot of guys who can handle the ball, who can play the point guard position if Lowe is unavailable. So I think he saw what happened with Lamont Butler last year, what happened with Kirk Kriisa, and wanted to put a lot of guys like Denzel Aberdeen and Jasper Johnson around him that can pick up that point guard role. Might not be their natural position, but can do that if Lowe goes down. But if Lowe's healthy, like all SEC upside was what my coworker Jack Pilgrim wrote just yesterday. And he's another guy that just gets downhill, gets to the rim. And I think that Kentucky's kind of relying on a lot of players that can do that.
Jonathan and Jacob, the backcourt partner for Lowe and for OA is Florida transfer Denzel Aberdeen. Aberdeen was a late add to the portal and then committed to Kentucky. There was a huge price tag attached to him. He was not a starter for that Florida team, but he was a key contributor off the bench. What do you guys think Aberdeen what do you think makes Aberdeen the guy that can take that next step into being one of the better guards, one of the better combo guards in this conference?
I think it's simply more playing time. Like he was stuck on the bench at Florida last year, and it wasn't because he wasn't good enough to start. It's because they had three other guards who were really, really good and part of a national championship team. I mean, I just think that he's a really good player off the bounce. Like, he's probably not a number one on a really good team, but he can absolutely be a number two on a really good team. He's excellent at getting in the lane. He's a strong physical guard / wing. I think he's a really good and smart addition to this team. I mean, him and OA are going to be really tough to stop getting downhill.
Yeah, those are two guys that I look at and say, you're going to have to throw those are unique or kind of unique bodies as combos / wing scorer types that there aren't exactly a ton of. Both of them have a little bit of jump shot to their game. Aberdeen last season shot 35% from three. I believe Florida was 23-0 when Aberdeen made a three last year. I don't know. I would not think that stat is going to carry over to Kentucky. I don't know if it means much. I think it probably says more about Florida last year than it does about Aberdeen. But the thing about Aberdeen is that he's a good all-around scoring piece as a low, and he's experienced being a lower usage guy. So you can have Owe and Lowe taking up some bigger usage roles next to him, and it keeps Aberdeen's role in a spot that he's not just comfortable with, a spot that he's really thrived in. Jacob, is this kind of what you're seeing down in Lexington?
Yeah, and like maybe he's not the best shooter, but I think he's a capable shooter that can knock down shots when you need him to. He can get to the rim like a lot of these guys. I keep saying it with basically every guy we've talked about can get to the rim and just brings that intensity on the defensive end that will really help this team and this whole backcourt. You're just a lot of interchangeable guys, and Aberdeen's kind of a steady guy that can play some significant minutes for them.
Last season, Kentucky's biggest Achilles heel was the fact that they could not defend the rim. They were dead last in the SEC in 2-point percentage defense. They were 13th in the SEC in defense. And they went out this year and made it known that they were going to fix that problem. Malachi Moreno, one of the freshmen that they have coming in, is a high-level shot blocker. They did bring in Jaden Quaintance from the transfer portal. We'll get into him in a minute because he's a total game changer when he's on the floor. It's just about when he will be on the floor. And Reese Potter comes in, another guy who can block shots. The composition of the interior defense is completely changed. How much do you think that changes the identity of this team, Jacob?
I think it changes the identity a ton. Like you talked to Jaden Quaintance over at when he was doing player interviews a few weeks ago, and he's saying that Kentucky can be the best defensive team in the country, which obviously he's on Kentucky. He's going to say that, but that defense is tied to this team's identity right now, where you really knew last year this was an offensive team, and they just have to figure out how to defend just enough so that they can prevent teams from scoring 100 points. But now this team's identity is a lot more defensive focused. And we'll talk about JQ later, but I think his health is going to be one of the more crucial things for this team, either being a top 20 team or a top 10 team.
What do you think about how Mo Diabate also can play a role in that change of identity?
Yeah, Diabate, he adds a lot where he can defend basically the 1 through 4, and then just he can really fill in the gaps defensively, especially if JQ's not healthy to start the year. Maybe he can guard the 5 a little bit if they really need it. I wouldn't recommend that, but he can be switched on and off, and it's just with him, it's all about energy, physicality, and he brings a lot defensively.
Yeah. Now we do have to talk about Quaintance, and the difference for me. And Brandon Garrison, not a guy that I'm super high on, but definitely a starting caliber big man in the SEC. Probably not one of the higher end big men in the SEC. They definitely have the depth, though, at that position to get through when Quaintance isn't there. But Jonathan, Jaden Quaintance was a total game changer on the defensive side of the floor for Arizona State last year. He's going to be, he's a freak.
Yeah, uber athletic, really long wingspan. You said it. Like, he's a total difference maker on the defensive end at the rim. Like, we don't know. Look, I don't know his health status right now. Like, I know he has a long-term injury and he's probably not going to be ready at the start of the season. But like him at 100%, like, completely changes what this team can do defensively. Like, they can be more aggressive on the perimeter when he's in there, which I think really caters to the personnel they have in the backcourt, like fast, athletic guards that can play in the passing lanes. So like, if he's healthy and you have a center rotation of him, Garrison, Moreno, like, that substantially improves your rim protecting no matter which way you kind of spice it up.
The numbers for Jaden Quaintance last year are pretty crazy. The on-off defense went from like 101 to 118, 53% at the rim when he's on the floor to 62.7% when he's not on the floor for Arizona State opponents. Just shuts the water off. And this is a team that's going to be physical. This is a Kentucky team that's going to be physical at all spots. I think that was maybe something that last year they were not, that they were a lot more of a, they were not as physical. They, especially when they lost Lamont Butler and Kirk Kriisa, their physicality at the point of attack was changed. Their physicality at the rim was never all the way there. Kobe Brea played a lot of minutes, and that was not a guy who was a super physical defender. I don't think they're going to have guys on the floor this year that are going to be gimmies defensively.
One of the things that I like first of all, I actually wanted to say this after you mentioned the on-off splits. Real eye-opening on-off splits for Mizzou with Quaintons when you consider who they took to be their starting center this year, who was backing up Quaintons last year at Arizona State. And then the second thing is, like, the thing that I probably love the most about Kentucky is, like, no matter like what lineup you have out there, they're not going to like change the way they really play at all. Like, the system's going to be the system. Like, Jasper Johnson, I've questioned his shot selection a lot in high school, deservedly so, but I think it's like a low usage play. He can roll off the bench. He'll be fine here. And then, Cam Williams does a lot of what Mo Diabate does. Malachi Moreno and Jaden Quaintons are very, similar players, obviously one being better than the other in terms of rim protection. Oweh and Aberdeen complement each other very, very well. You bring Chandler off the bench with shooting. Like, I think that would probably be the one question, but I also think that Kentucky has a lot of guys on this team who, like, could be good shooters, and I wouldn't bet that all of them don't end up being like I bet they have a couple good shooters on this team that we don't really consider great shooters right now.
Jacob, what can you tell us about Andrej Jelavic, the international player coming over, 6'11", great size, seems like a guy that Kentucky's excited about. What's the buzz around him?
Yeah, well, I should start by just addressing he hasn't arrived on campus yet. So Pope offered an update earlier in the week, said they got the transcripts, he's finished classes, and that part of the process is complete. So they're hoping that they get him on campus here pretty soon. He stopped himself before saying how soon, but I haven't heard any issues with having him by the start of the season. So they're hoping to get him on campus before the end of the summer. And I mean, anytime you can bring over a 21-year-old freshman with multiple years playing professionally overseas, that's a huge plus. And I look at this team and I'm like, the three, I'd say X factors are Jalen Lowe, Jaden Quaintons, and Jelavic. I think that if those three are as good as they can be, this is a national title contender. Obviously, Quaintons, the question is with his health, and then Jelavic is just what can this guy be in college basketball. But he was really good with his professional team, Mega Super Bet last year. So, and he can shoot from three a little bit. So if he's adding all of that, he can be a really good player. But he's one that is just a question mark because he hasn't played in the United States yet. You're not seeing as much of him as you are of guys like Jasper Johnson and Malachi Moreno.
Jacob, the final thing I really have to ask you is, we kind of tiptoed around it, but our top 100 ranking, our top 100 countdown, Sam and I, they start on Saturday, 2 days from now. And obviously, we're going to have a while before Kentucky is even close to coming up. But, it is something, I've been keeping an eye on and moving back and forth and changing a lot. So with Kentucky, we talked about how their ceiling changes with Jaden Quaintons' injury. What exactly do we know about Jaden Quaintons' injury right now, and what do we not know?
Yeah, he hasn't addressed a lot of concerns about his injury as far as when he's going to play. He's just kind of given the usual answers of taking his time with it, but I haven't heard many concerns about him being ready pretty early in the season. I think that the expectation is that, let me pull up his quote. Yeah, he gave a pretty standard quote about progressing well, trusting his trainers, kind of just getting ready for the season. So, he tore his ACL in February. So you're hoping to get him back early in the season. And if he's playing by December, January, then you're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with that. You just got to get him in the rhythm and have him fully built up by the time by the time you're into conference play or a little bit deeper into conference play, and have him fully ready to make that push.
I also want to make it clear that like Garrison and Moreno is a perfectly fine center rotation for a team that expects to be good. Like that center rotation is not derailing Kentucky from being a good basketball team.
It's not derailing them from being a good basketball team. I would say it's not. I would say you're probably not winning a national championship with that. But by the time winning a national championship comes around, you're expecting to have a fully locked and loaded Jaden Quaintance.
And I think you're also getting your best version of Brandon Garrison if he's playing behind a guy like Jaden Quaintance, where he can give you his best 10 to 15 minutes rather than having to play 20, 25 minutes and maybe overextending himself a little bit.
I also think that like the three of them being together could bring out the best in them, because it's like, hey, like you look around, three good centers in this rotation, three very serviceable centers in this rotation. Like you got to really fight to earn minutes, especially with Quaintance, recovering and looking over your shoulder.
So year one for Mark Pope, the Sweet 16 berth. Year two is probably going to look a lot different on the floor. They're still going to be really good. They're probably, I think the expectation is that they take a step up from the 16th rank in KenPom last year, especially considering the dollar amounts that have been thrown around in regards to how much this roster cost, which is a lot. But it's going to look different the way they do it. And I think that kind of speaks to what you have to do in the transfer portal era. I think you have to address what your weaknesses were and figure out how to build a team that can that can kind of play in between all the different, because there are obviously some questions about who's going to be the shooters on this roster, but I think there's enough bites at the apple where they will have good, where, as Jonathan mentioned, there will be good shooters on this team. And obviously last year's team shooting was the main draw. It was the big attraction. The offense was tremendous. The offense is still probably going to be really good this year. Defense is going to be really good. It's a roster built based on what the weaknesses were last year and kind of filling in around that, and giving this team more ways to be successful. And I think that making those adjustments year to year is one of the keys to being consistently successful in the transfer portal era, because you're not going to be, even if you put together really good teams every year, you can't put together the team the same way, because like use Florida for an example. They're not going to, you're not going to have three guards like that. Like that's not attainable. It was kind of a perfect storm that got you those three guards that were at that good at that stage. So they're built, so the roster is not built the exact same way. They're built to play a little bit bigger this year. So just the market defined changes. I think Kentucky's done a good job at finding a way to improve their roster, improve their weaknesses, and build something that is the transfer portal era that will look different, but will also look successful.
I actually have no idea what would have to happen for Jalen Lowe to shoot 26% from three again.
That's not who he is.
Like the amount of injuries that would have to happen, like for that.
And looking at it kind of from a more wide perspective, talking about what Sam's talking about, it's like I think this roster almost complements Mark Pope in a way where he has the offensive mind. You know that his teams are going to be offensive minded, but now he brings in a lot of really good defenders, and you just trust in Mark Pope finding guys ways to score. where you just bring in a lot of guys that he's not a great defensive coach, he's more of an offensive coach. You bring in defenders and just trust in him to figure out the offensive things. And I think that's kind of how I look at this roster right now.
I'm with you on that. And I think that, as I said, just a sign of a smart coach is knowing what in the market can help supplant their weaknesses and can help just make the most competitive possible roster in a given market, in a given year, with the skill sets that you have. And I think Kentucky did about as good of a job of that. And look, there are some rosters that I think there's sometimes where when a coach builds a roster so well for the specific identity that the coach has. St. John's last year, I think, was a perfect example of this. It was such a good roster build for what they were, with how much length they had on defense, with how much they could pressure the ball, how much they could protect the rim, how much they could do on that end of the floor. And it worked at a really, really high level. And I think that there are ways that you can build to an identity really successfully, and there's ways that you can build around an identity really successfully. And I think that there's multiple ways to win in college basketball. And I think Mark Pope is exploring that there are multiple ways to win in college basketball. And I think that's something that really is the mark of a great coach. Jonathan, Jacob, anything else to add before we go?
Get going off what you said. It's like at the end of the day, you want to find guys that are talented and can play basketball at a high level. And one guy we haven't talked about, Braden Hawthorne, I'm not sure how much he'll be able to contribute right away, but that's kind of the perfect example of just being opportunity focused in the portal and in the high school ranks. If you see a guy that's blooming late, kind of getting rising in the rankings at the right time, and then a lot of schools already have their rosters filled out, so you're not going to have to compete with a ton of teams to get this guy. That's a guy you add a lot of potential, maybe a 2-3 year guy that can really be a focus point on your program in future years.
Jonathan, anything else to add before we go?
This is probably the most excited I've been for a Kentucky team since before COVID, honestly. I think they're very much forward thinking, in a way that they weren't just a couple of years ago.
I'm with you on that. I think that it's going to be a really exciting year in Lexington. Jacob will be there throughout. I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to read more stuff, and I'm excited for tip-off talk coming up with San Diego State after this. Jonathan, you want to take us home?
If you came to hear about Tyler Self and where he's working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about me being the guest and Jacob Polachek doing the intro, you came to the right place. And if you came to hear about the latest happenings with Caleb Grill, you came to the right place. This has been Season 6, Episode 19 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Steelers, Tip-Off Talk Kentucky edition. And we'll see you in about 40 minutes for San Diego State.
Jonathan, thanks for joining us.